Tina from Target Tamers, and we bought the Maven RF.1 Rangefinder, and I've used it plenty in the field. Most of my excursions have been out for wildlife observation, and from my experience I can recommend it for all types of hunting and definitely for the tactician. So let's range out the RF.1. The RF.1 is much like traditional rangefinders. Obviously, what's not so traditional about it is the protruding wheel navigation knob. Really good for right-handed people. You can even use it with your thumb, kind of awkwardly. I find no problem using it with my left hand. For left-handed people, not so great. Now, if you were to just adjust the brightness on the fly, you can turn it clockwise to decrease it and anti-clockwise to increase the brightness. There's a button here right in the middle. By depressing it, you are activating the menu system on the display. The first setting will be to adjust the brightness. The second is to choose either angle compensation or line of sight mode with an angle degree readout. Third is the multiple reticle options, and fourth is to choose between yards or meters. Let's move on to modes. So we have two modes, field and forest mode, and that is activated by pushing the lever on the side of the menu wheel. Now, field and forest modes have pre-programmed algorithms to essentially give us what is more commonly known as first and second priority modes. Field mode, aka first priority mode, the rangefinder will give you a distance based on return data from the closest object within the beam divergence. So that means it's going to grab that distance on that elk that's in front of the tree line or that's in front of a fence. Anything that's behind it, it's going to ignore all of that and give you a distance on what's in front. Now, when you're in the forest and the timber, go into forest mode, and that is second priority mode, basically where it's going to ignore all that foreground noise, everything in front like branches, tall grass, brush, and grab a distance from the object behind. The RF.1 is a 7x magnification by 25mm lens rangefinder, so it's obviously not going to be as bright as the binoculars that you're using on your hunt, but I did find that the 7x magnification was an ideal balance between getting enough power on my targets and having ultimate image stability, which is really important when you're using it freehand, especially on those long range targets. Jumping over to glass quality, it's made in Japan, it has the same optical integrity as the B series binoculars. Let's talk about nighttime observation. It did really well in well-lit areas. So obviously, the closer the target is, you'll get a positive reading like right away. You'll also be able to see people and vehicles and things that are going on within the field of view. It did great up to about 500 yards at nighttime, in my opinion. Now, I wanted to really test out its long range ability at night. Since I live rural, there's a lot of dark space around. So I was only able to grab some distances on well-lit buildings 1,100 to 1,200 yards away. Now, to be completely honest, all the artificial light and brightness washed out my ability to see what I was actually grabbing a distance on. All I know is that my rangefinder grabbed a distance and I was happy with that. Let's talk about range. Okay, so the RF.1 is advertised to provide maximum ranging ability out to 4,500 yards on highly reflective targets. That was proven true. I was able to grab distances on vehicles out over 4,800 yards, and that was doing it freehand. Of course, I had myself steadied against something. Now, the advertised distance for trees is 3,000 yards. I've been able to get that, no issue there. Now, the advertised distance for elk or deer is 2,700 yards. Unfortunately, I struggled with that one. It could be due to two things. The beam divergence is 2.1 mrads, and the dot of the reticle was covering my target at that point. In fact, I found that I was able to get distances on elk between 1,600 to about 2,200 yards, but beyond that, I really struggled. So I mounted it to a tripod, and still the same issue of that dot covering up very small targets at that distance. Will you be disappointed with not being able to grab a deer at 2,700 yards? I don't think you should be, because even if you do grab a range, you're going to have to sort closer anyway. But being able to get distances on soft targets like that up to about 2,000 yards and maybe a little bit over, that's excellent performance from a rangefinder. In fact, it speaks to the power of the range-finding engine inside the RF1. Incredibly accurate, incredibly reliable. Now, readout accuracy, you're getting half-yard measurements up to about 300 yards, then up to 2,000 yards, give or take 1 yard accuracy, and then out to maximum range, give or take 3 yard accuracy. Okay, build quality. Huge points to the knurled focus wheel. I'd describe it as having medium stiff resistance, really dependable there. The eye cup is just like all of Maven's binoculars, multi-position, and it's designed so that it keeps out excess light from getting in when you're using it. It's also completely twist off, just like the binoculars, so you can clean around the ocular lens and get out all that gritty, nasty stuff. Now, the eye relief is 17 millimeters, but I found it extremely forgiving. When I wanted to use it in a jiffy for fast target acquisition, I would pull out the rangefinder. I barely even have it perfectly aligned, and I can still see the full field of view. It's made with a magnesium and aluminum frame. I do wish that the rubber armor covered more of the body, but really no issues there. It feels really good and high quality in the hand. It's supposed to be waterproof, so I tested it. It's IP67 rated, which means it should be submersible in up to 1 meter of water for 30 minutes. I was really worried and anxious about doing it because it has electronics, but it survived and there's no internal condensation. Everything's as good as it was before I dunked it into water. It takes the CR2 battery. Here's the battery compartment. You just turn that and it comes off and it pops out. It's supposed to last 3,500 actuations. I've used it extensively and mine hasn't even gone down a single bar. Let's talk about tripod mounting. I love the fact that the RF1 can be mounted to a tripod via the threading on the bottom. But if you mount it with a regular binocular tripod adapter like what I did, it will be mounted sideways. Now, this isn't too much of an issue because the display will be seen on its side. I didn't care for that much except for when I have to show you the pictures and you've got a sideways reading. We've already gone over its low light and nighttime ability, and I do think it would make a great tool for law enforcement, security, tacticians, even if you're just using it for a fast target acquisition, to get your sights on a target, and of course to get a range. Really good for close range hunting. Think bow hunting, tree stand, timber. You keep in mind you are getting that half yard accuracy up to 300 yards. Now for long range out west, you're covered. It deserves to be mounted, but it's so easy to use freehand as well. I don't go anywhere without my rangefinder. In fact, I've used it as a binocular for fast target acquisition and then pulled out my binoculars to pick apart details. But more importantly, I have really poor guesstimating skills, having grown up with the metric system and then having to learn the American measuring system. As an adult, I'm left somewhere in the middle, which means I'm practically useless in accurately guessing distances and measurements. So I've come to heavily rely on rangefinders, and the Maven RF1 has turned out to be extremely trustworthy and accurate. I will not be without these on my hunt. To get the write-up on the Maven RF1, that will be in a link down below. If you're looking to upgrade your binoculars as well, check out the Maven Binocular Comparison Guide to see what Maven has to offer. You know, you've got compact from 7 times magnification up to big size, 18 times magnification binoculars there. Now, as always, friends, like, subscribe, and get outside.